Have you ever been hurt by your church, but still wanted to have a connection with Jesus and your spirituality? In this video, I'm going to bring up 3 topics that I want you to consider as you move toward reconnecting with your faith in Jesus Christ. Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Lionel. There's a scripture verse in Joel chapter 2, verse 25 that says that God's going to restore the years that the locust has consumed. And what that verse really means, if you're a person who has experienced church hurt, you're in a prime position to allow God to restore you. And the first thing is this: you have to be willing to address the pain of not being in community anymore, not having people to join you in a small group on Sunday evening, or not having a group of people to connect with on the weekend or after a long day at work, not having shared meals together anymore because you're no longer a part of that particular congregation, or going to a grocery store, having to ignore or go to the next aisle because people from your past church are on the aisle right next to you, not having people to visit you when you're in the hospital anymore, or not having a sense of feeling needed, that someone needs you around and someone values what you have to say, not having people that you connect with in doing something together as a group that feels bigger than yourself. I know the pain and I know the experience of leaving that everything you were doing and everything that the church or the pastor or the leadership was telling you to do. You did it, and you did it with passion. You did it with a cheerful spirit. And sometimes you did it tired, but you still did it. You still gave an effort. The second thing you have to do is equally important. You have to begin building your relationship with God away from church and away from institutional religion. What does that really mean? It means that you have to get to know God for yourself. You can't rely on the pastor. You cannot rely on, what people were telling you. You can't necessarily rely on doctrine anymore, because doctrine is simply a man's way of trying to explain very, very complicated spirituality, right? So you have to begin to know, God, what do you mean? What does the gospel mean to me? What does having faith mean? Do I need to participate or dedicate myself to church this much? And how much does God actually need from me to feel proud about me or for me? And how much do I have to do to get God to be pleased with me? This is important. And so in order for me, what I did going through my faith is, number one, I started reading the Gospels of Jesus Christ in the Bible. So I started reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I'm not saying that other scripture verses or the epistles or the Hebrew Bible or Hebrew covenant is not important. All of those are very, very important to faith development and spiritual growth. But more importantly, I read the Gospel of Jesus Christ because my goal was to connect with Jesus on a deep and personal level without anyone having to teach me. I wanted to let the Spirit teach me itself. And so this process of reading the Gospels, I wanted to hear, what did Jesus say to people like the woman at the well? And what did Jesus say to the man who had leprosy, or the man who was healed, or the man who was blind, who he spat on mud and clay and placed it on his eyes and he began to see again? What does that say? How does that blindness that man experience healing from is a metaphor for our own blindness of the soul, that Jesus can open up ourselves, open up the internal locature of who we are as people and our spirituality. And what does that mean? What does it mean for Jesus to tell the woman at the well that her sins have been forgiven, even though she had done the most heinous things according to that time and period, what the gospel writer says? But what does Jesus' forgiveness toward her, what does that suggest to me? So when I'm reading the Gospels, I'm going through these kinds of questions and asking myself, what does this mean to me? Let me ask you this question. Have you ever seen yourself in the gospel? This is what developing your own personal spirituality means. Have you seen yourself as the woman at the well? Have you seen yourself as David? Like literally as David? Have you seen yourself as Samson, the guy who said, God, just give me one more chance. I know I screwed up time and time again, but just give me one more chance. Do you see yourself that way? As you begin to pray in this way, to meditate in this way, to journal in this way, you begin to rebuild what your relationship with God means away from the institution of church. And that is important because now you're going to know who God is for yourself. Like Dr. Martin Luther King says, you can't call on mama and daddy now, who's 250 miles away, but you got to get to know who God is for yourself. So once again, you have to acknowledge the pain, address it. Number 2, you have to develop spirituality yourself. And the third thing is this: you have to build a supportive community that uplifts you. And the best way to do this is to find people who've also had traumatic experience in their lives. And it doesn't only have to do with church. It can be related to church, but not only about church. But maybe people who've experienced financial hardship, or people who have experienced divorce, or have a relationship that didn't quite work out, or people who were entrepreneurs and their business didn't quite work out. And ask them, what did they learn from their experiences? Even yet, find out, what are they doing now, right? After they've had those traumatic experiences. Having people around you is critical in order for you to understand that we all are human beings. And if there's nothing else that you get from this video, I want you to get this very important fact. God knows that we are dust. God knows that we struggle. God knows that we have been wronged. And some of us have really been wronged with church hurt, right? So finding people who you can share their humanity with them. Sharing humanity is struggle, pain, disappointment, heartbroken. If you can find people around you, not so you can get into some kind of group where you just mourn and just complain about your experiences. I'm not talking about in that fashion, but so that you're not judgmental of people anymore. Because sometimes what the church can do is that we can tell people that they can come as they are, but then when they do come as they are, we don't like it, and so we tell them, well, come back and try again. So I'm not talking about that kind, but I'm talking about shared humanity where you don't judge people. One of my favorite books by Chuck Swindoll is called Grace Awakening, because what this book does is keeps you from being judgmental. It keeps you from just thinking that everybody should believe the way you are and think the way you are. As a matter of fact, people who tell you to believe it the way they believe, or if you don't think the way they think, you're not good. They've never been through anything, okay? But this is for people who've actually been through something. So having people around you where you can see each other as you are, warts and all, is going to help you to begin rebuilding your faith. Why? Because people accept you on your terms. If they don't like you, they move on, right? One of the struggles that we deal with in church, or the churches we just left, is because people said one thing and did something different. And I experienced that. I remember, one time, one person had church. One of my experiences was like this. I saw two sides of people. I saw people who were very nice to me at church on Sunday, but if they saw me out in town, they wouldn't say a word to me. I know what it's like to have these kinds of experiences, and I'm done with that. And perhaps you are too, because now you're looking for authentic relationships and authentic faith community. So these are some of the ways that you can begin rebuilding your faith. Now, I want you to know that you're not in this alone. I'm here to help you. So if you have questions about this, or you're going through this right now, just put a comment below if you'd like to. And I will respond to that comment, because I know what it's like to go through these experiences. Is not a pretty experience. It's absolutely traumatic, what you're going through and what we've all gone through. Okay, so let's make a comment below and I'll be sure to respond to it. And I want you to watch the next video that's coming up on the screen, because it's going to continue helping you, as it did me, work through and process through these experiences as we move toward redeveloping our faith. So I laid out a roadmap for you, but I want you to know you're not alone on your journey, okay? Until next time, salute, peace.
I need that peace of mind. A wise man once told me, seek it and ye shall find. I guess I'm walking blind. Even if I couldn't read, I read between the lines. That's called